Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crossover Podcast. Severance fans across YouTube, this is officially the first Severance episode breakdown, episode discussion. I have been obsessed with this show ever since I started it. I did not start on Season 1 all the way back when it premiered in 2022. I started binging it a few days prior to the release of Season 2, so got all caught up on Season 1. Phenomenal. I just want to say before I get into Episode 4, Severance is, in my opinion, the best show on TV right now, and it is not close. This show is phenomenal. They just do everything right. The cinematography is beautiful. I love the characters, and they keep you on edge every single episode. Like, this show is the only show that I think I've watched that you can watch a whole 50-minute episode and not really know what you just saw. So, let's just get started, and can we please talk about the Wilderness Retreat? Because I know Lumen, as calculated and smart that they are, would never, ever let the Severed employees out into a random forest under little supervision, because they're already scheming. They're already trying to find out what Lumen does. They're already breaking the rules. Why would Lumen ever let them out into the forest to just roam about and do whatever they want? I think they were in some type of Truman Show building type of thing. I don't know what it was. I saw one Severance TikToker, Claire, who makes a lot of great Severance videos, and she said maybe it's the team building room from PD's sketch. That's a possibility. Maybe it's somewhere on the Severed floor somewhere. I don't know. But what I do know is they are definitely not outside. They are not in the Dieter Egan forest. And I can tell you that for sure. Next, we need to talk about the eerie doppelganger clones. I know Lumen doesn't clone. I know the creators said that that's not what they do. But I need to know, what were those people pointing the way as they were getting to the cave to read the appendix and pointing the way to get up to the campsite? That was really weird, and that was really creepy, and I need to know what it was. Now, there is a cloning theory, the goat cloning theory, which I personally, I don't know what I think. Like I said, that's not all that Lumen does. Would I be surprised if they clone? No, absolutely not. But those doppelganger things, they really threw me off. And then I guess the biggest reveal of the episode was that Helly R was not Helly R. That was Helena Egan. And I personally knew this. I think the first time Helena went back down to the Severed floor, her chip didn't ding on the elevator, and that was what kind of cued me into knowing, like, hey, this is Helena. I thought she was also acting very odd, and she was trying to act like how Helena thinks Helly R is. And to me, it was kind of obvious. This episode, there was so many little things, like when she tried to approach Irving and give him the baby seal, like, Helly R would never, that's cringe. Helly R would never do that. That was a clear giveaway. How she started laughing when she heard Kier's story, like, about Dieter and how he died. That is so not Helly R. That's so Helena. And I just feel like overall, the signs were there. Yes, we knew it, but the signs were there. I guess, kind of continuing to talk about Helena, I think it's really crazy when you think about Helly R's timeline, because she goes from that presentation at Lumen and getting dragged off stage, and the next time she is woken up is literally being drowned by Irving. She is probably so ridiculously traumatized. She's probably just has no idea what is going on in her life. I mean, neither would I. It's really like a wow. Like, this show kind of, like, every episode, I think they kind of take it to another level, but I think this is a real next level, because it's like now we're really getting in. We know these characters have trauma, but now the innies have their own trauma, starting with Helly R. I guess another big thing that Helly R is going to have to realize, he's probably going to be upset by, is that Mark and Helly's romantic night, that was with Helena. That wasn't with Helly. So I think that's showing for a lot. I think that shows Mark is interested in Helly. No matter if it's Helly, Helena, doesn't matter. He wants her. But I think for Helly R, that's going to be almost dehumanizing that Helena was just slid her way in there and I guess kind of got with Helly R's man, because technically, like, they're not the same person. I think that's going to be very interesting to kind of dive into whenever they do get into that. That's going to be very interesting, because we know when Helena watched the footage of Helly R and Mark kissing outside the elevator, she had that awkward smirk. We can kind of assume she hasn't really had many romantic relationships. So it's really an interesting bridge to cross when we do get there, because I need to know about that. I need to know the inner conflict between Helly and Helena. Now let's get to Mark. I want to save Irving for last, because I love Irving B, and I really have a lot to say about him. So let's just get to Mark. I was a little bit confused. I thought Mark was reintegrated, and they didn't end up really showing that until he was romantically touching Helena, and Gemma's face kind of popped on screen, and I was a little bit confused by the reintegration. But in terms of Mark, not that much happened this episode. This was all really centered around Irv. Okay, I was just editing this video, and I scrolled on TikTok before, and I just saw another phenomenal Severance theory. First of all, this user is Virgo Blade on TikTok. I could not have came up with this theory myself. I just think this is a phenomenal theory, and I really do believe it. So, what he said was, in the beginning of the episode, Mark is sitting atop the hill overlooking Dieter Egan Park, exactly like Keir is in the picture of Keir overlooking the forest and the lake. So he essentially is saying they're positioning Mark as Keir. You may have guessed, Helly is being positioned as Keir's wife, Imogen. And how do we know this? Well, we don't exactly, but in the opening scene, the opening credits, that's the word I'm looking for. In the opening credits, you see tiny babies crawling around Mark, and it's snowing. And this guy, just great theory. It's snowing. Why is it snowing? Because the baby of Helena and Mark was conceived in the forest. Now, you may be asking, how are you jumping to this conclusion? I don't know. I think it just makes sense. Maybe Helly really never was interested in Mark all that much. Maybe Helena knows what the real objective is. People throw the theory around that Lumen is trying to resurrect Keir and resurrect all the past Lumen CEOs. Maybe this son of Mark and Helly is going to be the reincarnation of Keir. I think that they have all the old CEOs' consciousness on the chips. And how do they have that? Because MDR is sorting through their consciousness, and once they finish the project, they get to 100%, that finishes someone's consciousness on the chip. Now, what do they need to do? All they'll need to do is insert the chip into Mark and Helly's baby's heads. Now, my brain is flowing. So another theory. Miss Huang has a Severance chip, obviously, but she's a 10-year-old. How is she so articulate? How is she so well-spoken? How is she so professional? Well, they probably put maybe Gemma, maybe Miss Casey's chip in her to reprogram her to work as the new floor manager. Why did they do this? I don't know. It's very odd. But now that kind of just makes sense. So I think Virgo Blade on TikTok, phenomenal theory. Maybe Helly in a few episodes is going to come out with a baby bump, and maybe it's going to be Mark's. And I'm just going to say I wouldn't be surprised. And I love Irv. I think he's such a delightful character. I think John Turturro does a phenomenal job playing him. And let me just say this. I think Irv is reintegrated. I think this for a few reasons. Number one, how would any Irv know what the exports room is? How would he know what the exports room drawing is? How would he know how to make that? Because that's what his Audi is constantly drawing. I've seen this theory floated around on TikTok that he maybe is sleep deprived and his innie memories are bleeding into the Audi memories. No. What I think, Irving was reintegrated. Dr. Ragabi said to Mark, I've refined the surgery. Now, how would she refine the surgery unless she did it on other people? Petey obviously died and that whole thing happened. There was no other severed employees who have left other than Bert G. We haven't heard from Bert G in a while. I would like to think Bert G may have also been reintegrated because of that clip. I don't remember if it was earlier in this season or the end of last season. Bert G somehow knew who Audi Bert knew who Irving was when Irv is on the phone talking to who I think is Dr. Ragabi. How would Bert know who Irv was? How would he know to follow him, etc.? I think Bert may have been reintegrated. I really strongly believe Irving is, because, not to jump around, but in the end of the episode, Irv doesn't really seem too bothered that Irving B is about to be cast off into eternal darkness, whatever Milchick says. He doesn't really seem to care, and I think that's because he knows he's reintegrated. His innie memories are bleeding into his Audi, and it doesn't matter if Milchick banishes him and Kier is ashamed. He's reintegrated. There's a lot more to cover regarding Irving. Let's talk about the dream. I've seen some people say that the dream was maybe a side effect of reintegration. I've seen people say that the dream confirmed his theories about Helena, which I do believe to be true. That dream was very eerie. I don't know what the dream really meant. I'm not one of those people who can just analyze the show and find all the deeper meanings. I'm not that type of person. But what I do know is that very odd, very eerie, very Severance. I think they're able to get that uncomfortable, ominous tone, and they're able to execute it very well. Moving on to the climax of the episode. Irving B tracks down Helena in the forest, who is awkwardly observing the biggest waterfall in the world, and he says, "Hey kid," and typical Heliar would say, "What's for dinner?" But Helena had no idea what that meant. So, regardless of anything else, that confirmed Irving's suspicions, and he drags her down to the river, and he screams out, first he says, who would have the power to send their innie to the severed floor? And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because this scene was peak. He says, calling for Milchick, and he says, "She's an Egan, we have a mole." And I thought that scene was just so good, and he's drowning Helena, waiting for Milchick to make the call to do the Glasgow block. Helena finally screams, "God damn it, Seth, do it!" And Irving says, "Yes, Seth, do it!" And it's just such an empowering moment for Irv. And Irv, some people, he kind of went off the deep end, but, he had nothing more to live for in the severed floor. He wanted to burn Lumen down to the ground, like he said. He lost Bert G. He didn't really have any other meaning in the severed floor. Therefore, I think he is taking what his innie knew, he's been reintegrated, and he's going to actually burn Lumen down to the ground. Now, in the Lexington letter that was supplemental, I didn't read it all, but the gist was a severed employee was trying to be a whistleblower, ended up getting killed. I pray Irving does not get killed, but if he tries to whistleblow, I think that's a real possibility. I also would love to see Irv back on the Severed floor. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I really like his interactions with everyone on the team. I think they have great chemistry, but I do not think Irving is going to be back on the Severed floor. I guess in conclusion, there's just so many things that I need to know about this show. I need to know where Harmony is. Harmony Cobell is like the most unhinged, crazy, mysterious character I've ever seen on TV. We know nothing about her other than she is legitimately psychotic. She like lives and dies by Egan. I believe that her mom had her mom's death or something had something to do with Lumen, and I don't know how she's involved, but she is extremely involved. And I've seen people say maybe Harmony is the child of one of the CEOs, which is why in the conversation in the parking lot, Helena says something about getting rid of Harmony, and Harmony says, you know you can't do that. So Cobelvig is holding something over Lumen and the Egans. She knows something that she's not supposed to, and I really want to explore that because Harmony, she's one of my favorite characters. I think Patricia Arquette, I think is her name, does such a great job portraying such an interesting character, and I definitely want to see more of Harmony Cobell. I also think, as per usual, Tramel Tillman just knocks it out of the park every single episode. He's so convincing, and he's just a phenomenal character. This whole cast and the entire show, like, there is not one aspect that I would change, and that's really saying something. I think this is peak television, and the wait week in and week out is killing me. I cannot go another week before I see what happens to our severed friends. And there are so many unanswered questions. What's gonna happen to Helly R? What's gonna how are they gonna go back to work with not only knowing what they know, but also experiencing what they did? Irv tried to drown Helena. How can you go back to work? Are they going to do a clean slate? I can see that happening. Hopefully they explore Mark's reintegration a little bit more, because that's very interesting to me. Overall, I mean, I don't know how many episodes they're doing this season. I would assume 9, maybe 10. I think last season was 9. Hopefully it's 10. But man, this show is so good. I cannot wait for next season, and I think I'm going to make this a weekly installment. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. I think I covered everything. We talked about Helena. We talked about Helly R. We talked about Irving. We covered Bert G for a little bit. Mark's reintegration. I really, really want them to explore a little bit more of Mark and Helena / Helly R, because that whole dynamic is really, really interesting to me. I also, obviously, justice for Gemma. I need to know where Gemma is. I need to know how Gemma, who was visibly burnt to a crisp, how is Gemma alive? I don't understand it. But if you guys watch Severance, let me know what you think. What are your theories? I love to hear the Severance theories. I'm just going to leave it at that. I could theorize all day. But if you guys enjoyed, drop a like, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next vid.